In episode 6, Wanda is now in the same realm of like a Malcolm in the Middle type show. It's Halloween in Westview, and everyone's getting dressed up. Vision sees everybody in their costumes and says, okay, everybody have a good night, and starts to leave, but Wanda says, where are you going? And Vision says, the neighborhood watch is the only thing that stands between the trees and the toilet paper. She starts to say, no, that's not what you're supposed to do, but Vision cuts her off and says, what? And Wanda says, you just didn't tell me you had plans. Billy turns to the camera and says, Mom and Dad have been, I wouldn't say fighting, but they've just been different. And Pietro comes over to break up this mini squabble and says, well, if the guy needs a night off, I'll be the father figure. Don't worry about it, sis. The kids change into their costumes with Pietro and Tommy basically being the same thing. Quicksilver, because Wanda decided to recast Pietro. She just happened to use the guy that played Quicksilver. So as Wanda and Pietro and Tommy and Billy head off to trick-or-treat, the town is populated with kids that weren't there before. But Wanda is trying to figure out how exactly Pietro came back, and he looks nothing like the brother that she knew. She starts asking him questions about their childhood, and he immediately says, you're trying to test me. I know I look different. And Wanda says, well, why do you look different? But Pietro says, you tell me. Billy then comes over, and Pietro, Billy, and Tommy start, quote, maximizing their candy supply. And Wanda notices Herb, dressed up as Frankenstein, who's in the town watch. But right after she asks him how he's doing, he gets radioed that kids' candy's going missing, jack-o'-lanterns have been smashed, silly strings been put on people, and Wanda sees Billy, Pietro, and Tommy running around the neighborhood at lightning speed doing all of this. It gets to the point where Herb says, I gotta go, but Wanda says, well, I'm sure Vision can help you with that, but Herb lets her know that Vision isn't in the town watch. And that's a little perplexing to Wanda, and Herb says, do you need something? Is there something I can help you change? But she kind of laughs it off, although you can tell she is bothered by it. And Vision is patrolling the neighborhood, seeing that people are exhibiting really weird behavior. One woman is literally crying while just repeating the same motion over and over again, although her face shows no emotion whatsoever. We then get a commercial for Yo Magic Yogurt, the yogurt for survivors. And it is one of the worst ad campaigns I can imagine. Now, on the outside, after Wanda went back into the Hex, Hayward had his men grab the drone that has still got some powerful thing around it, but he gets stopped by Rambo, who is really mad at him. She yells at him, you cut us off at the knees sending in that missile. And when he walks by Darcy quips, hey, there he is, the guy that almost got murdered by his own murder squad. Hayward turns around and looks at Darcy and says, do you work for me? But Rambo stands next to her and says, she works for me. And Hayward says, oh, I get it. Which one of you guys are the sassy best friends? But Wu steps up and says, there's no time for you to start insulting your colleagues when you're starting a war that you can't win. Hayward says that Wanda was never going to negotiate with them. If they take her out, this whole thing ends. But Rambo points out that he doesn't actually know that. He has no idea what would happen inside of Westview or what would happen outside of it if they killed Wanda. We can't outgun her, and clearly antagonizing her is only making things worse. If Wanda is the problem, she has to be our solution. Hayward has reached the end of his rope, though, and says, Rambo, you have become an impediment to this mission, constantly advocating for superheroes, and I'm aware of your relationship with Carol Danvers, and yeah, all you people that left, you still have the luxury of optimism, but you had no idea what it was like. Rambo shoots back, don't use the last 5 years as an excuse to be a coward. And that's when Hayward crosses a line, saying, maybe it's a good thing you weren't here when your mother died, because clearly you don't have the stomach for this job. He then tells his minions to get Darcy, Wu, and Rambo off his base immediately. But as the officers are trying to do that, Wu and Rambo take them out pretty easily. They put on the soldiers' uniforms so they won't be detected, and they make their way into a tent where Darcy can hack into the data on Hayward's devices. And when they do that, they realize that Hayward figured out a way to look through the boundary, and he didn't share it. Hayward's been tracking Vision, and they have no idea why. They also see the Westview residents that are in Vision's vicinity, but some of them are not moving, and that's slight cause for concern. Darcy continues to try to dig for more information, and Rambo gets a text and says, that's it. My way back into the Hex will be here in an hour. I just got to meet my guy over the ridge. Darcy, though, stops what she's doing and says, you can't do that. You can't go back in the Hex. And then she turns her computer screen around and says, Hayward has your blood work. You've gone through the boundary twice, and the energy inside has rewritten your cells on a molecular level. It's literally changing you to go back in. But after what Monica saw with her mom going through remission, she's not really worried about cells changing. She says, I know what Wanda's feeling, and I'm not going to stop until I help her. Darcy says, okay, that's fine. You guys go, but I'm staying here. I haven't made it through Hayward's last firewall, and there's something big here. I just know it. Rambo says, fine, I'll drop you the location, and you meet us out there as fast as you can. Rambo and Wu take off, and Darcy continues to dig through this firewall. And it takes her a little bit, but she is able to break through. Although she doesn't have much time to dig in, because Vision continued walking around the neighborhood, seeing people in like a zombie-like state and couldn't figure out what was happening. He decided to use his powers and fly up in the sky, and then he saw a car sitting idle, and when he went to it, it was Agnes. Concerned for her safety, he asked what she was doing there, and she lied to him, saying that she had made a wrong turn and got lost in the neighborhood that she grew up in and lived in her entire life. He uses his powers to zap her out of Wanda's spell, and she immediately recognizes him as one of the Avengers. The issue is, he doesn't have any memory of what an Avenger is. He just knows that his name's Vision. She starts to panic a little bit and asks if she's dead, and Vision says, no, why would you think that? And she says it's because you're dead. He tells her that what he wants to do is get outside of Westview and make sense of what's going on. But she looks at him and says, how? No one leaves. Wanda won't even let us think about it. He ends up zapping her back into Wanda's spell, and she turns into the happy-go-lucky Agnes. But Vision started walking towards the exit of the Hex. And Darcy sees this on the radar, and so does Hayward. But Wanda doesn't see it, because she's just trick-or-treating with her brother and her 2 sons, which, by the way, it turns out Tommy has the family power of speed. As Wanda and Pietro are taking a break, though, Pietro asks her, where did you hide all these kids from? She starts to kind of deny it, but then just says, you think it's wrong? And he goes, no, I'm impressed. It's a big improvement from just shooting nightmares out of your hands. He then asks the most important question, how did you even do all this? She's reluctant to say anything, but he says, I'm not a stranger, I'm not your husband, I'm your brother. And she tells him that the truth is, she doesn't know how she did it. She then turns away from her brother. When she looks back, Pietro is dead, just like Vision was. She turns away mortified, and when she turns back, Pietro is normal. It's the same exact thing that happened with Vision, and he asks her, are you okay? And she says, I'm fine, but Pietro knows something's up. Now at this point, Tommy is the only one that has shown any signs of powers. But when Vision walks through the Hex, that's when you get a look at Billy's powers, because he's able to hear Vision. Because when Vision walked through the Hex, he is struggling to stay alive. He's really fighting through it. The Hex is pulling him back. And Hayward, along with his men, come out to see what's going on with Vision, and Darcy runs out begging them to help him because he's clearly in pain. But instead of doing that, they just handcuff her to a car. And Vision is disintegrating while begging them to help, but not himself. He wants them to help the people inside the town. And Billy, realizing something's going wrong with his dad, runs up to Wanda and lets her know that something's up with Dad. I think he's dying, and it's because Vision is in fact dying. Pietro makes the offhanded comment to Wanda, it's not like your dead husband died twice, and she just uses her powers to throw him to the side. She then turns to Billy and tells him, I need you to focus. What can you tell me? And Billy says, I see soldiers. So at that moment, Wanda knows where Vision is. And she uses her powers to start backing the force field up. And once that happens, people start fleeing. One of those people that is unable to flee is Darcy, who's still handcuffed to that vehicle. And unfortunately, her, along with a bunch of other soldiers, and really their entire base, ends up getting swallowed up by the Hex. And as Wu and Rambo are driving off to meet up with Rambo's contact, they see it in their rearview mirror, as does Hayward, who is able to get away. Thank you so much for watching this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Like the video if you liked it. Hit thumbs down if you thought it sucked. If you don't see the next video up in the end screen, don't worry, it'll be up soon. And please be nice in the comments section. Nobody likes being told they suck, even if it's true. Oh, and sharing's caring.